Cartels are about succession. The day Pablo went down, the Cali Cartel became public enemy number one. Their operations had grown into the biggest cocaine cartel in history. It was Cocaine Incorporated, and they ran it like a Fortune 500 company.
People want to see the Godfathers in handcuffs, and that's what they're going to get.
That was a clip from the Netflix series Narcos. In season 3, after the death of Pablo Escobar, the DEA shifts its focus to the Cali Cartel, one of the biggest drug cartels in history. The show is based on true events, and our next guest lived it. They were DEA agents stationed in Colombia working to take down the notorious Cali Godfathers. Part of their story was told in the TV show, but now they're sharing much more in their book, After Escobar. Joining us are former DEA agents and authors Chris Feistl and Dave Mitchell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Wow.
Good morning.
I remember interviewing John Lawn, who was the head of the DEA in the mid-'80s to 1990, and that's when crack cocaine hit the streets, and America was just not prepared for the gang warfare and what was happening. But he talked about just how complicated and dangerous and crazy this whole thing was. And after doing the DEA Citizens Academy here in Houston, I was overwhelmed, and I was just doing the DEA Citizens Academy. I'm gonna start with you, Chris. What made you decide to join the DEA?
Well, initially I was going to go to law school, and then I got an internship and a summer job down on the boardwalk in the Jersey Shore in the summer of 1983. And, I started to work in that law enforcement field, and I had a chance to work undercover buying methamphetamine. And that really opened my eyes to the problems that we were facing in the drug world. And I wanted to have a career in drug law enforcement, so I decided to join the DEA.
Yeah, you spent 26 years there. You worked international cases and led some of the DEA's most significant investigations. All right, Dave, what brought you to the DEA?
Pretty much the same thing. I mean, I was in the military after college, so I worked overseas, and I knew that DEA, we have about 90 different, we're in 90 different countries. So, I thought DEA would be a great career, not only working domestically, but working in the foreign arena.
Yeah. You started in Miami's cocaine cowboy era, which we know Giselle Blanco and Miami Vice, right?
Yes.
Well, all right. Your book, After Escobar, because we know there's only so much that we get from news clips and stuff, and then we move on to a whole new news story. But you all lived it, and it didn't happen in an hour or in a binge watching of 3 or 4 hours. This is something that you all lived and breathed almost every day. So it's also told from the DEA agent's point of view. The biggest and most powerful crime syndicate in history is how the head of the DEA at the time, Thomas Constantine, called the Cali Cartel. All right, let's start with Cali and where that came from, the cartel.
Well, the Cali Cartel was formed in the late 1960s out of a criminal organization called Los Chemas, and they were just another criminal group. They were involved in robbery, kidnapping, car theft, and things like that. And they segued into cocaine trafficking in the early 1970s, and they set up a base of operations in New York City. And of course, over the next 2 decades, that operation expanded into the biggest drug cartel in history, and they were able to flood the United States and later on Europe and many other countries with cocaine.
Yeah, and when we say cartel, just like we are used to hearing the word mafia or organized crime, it is very organized. And I'm going to go to you. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it was extremely organized. I mean, they ran their organization like a Fortune 500 company. They had separate divisions to run the drug trafficking, the money laundering, their military wing, and they were highly sophisticated, and that's what allowed them to be in existence for over 2 decades.
Yeah, and in the early 90s, they supplied nearly 80 to 85% of the cocaine in the United States, 90% worldwide, and dominated 6 continents, which is why this is an international fight. All right, Dave, the mission to go to Colombia, when you got that assignment, did you have any idea what you were in for?
Actually, I did, but not to the extreme, because we knew there was going to be corruption. But once Chris and I started working, especially in Cali, at the search block, there's a specialized unit where they're going after the kingpins. it was a systematic corruption. I mean, it was from the top to the bottom. Actually, the captain who was our liaison, who was in charge of their intelligence for this team, he was one of the main spies for the Cali Cartel. So I would say the corruption level was one of the biggest things that really set it apart.
And we were talking about this type of ruthlessness in terms of there's nothing they wouldn't do to hurt you or kill you, and they had all the money in the world to buy you. That's a tough thing to fight against. All right, the other tough thing for you too is that you were dropped in the middle of a country where you kind of stuck out.
Yeah, that's kind of the funny thing is that, myself and Dave, we're both, 6'2", 6'3", blonde hair, and it's kind of hard for us to blend in. And during that time in Colombia in the 80s and the 90s, Colombia was the most violent and dangerous country in the world. It led the world in kidnappings as well as murders. So there weren't very many Americans as well operating in Cali or living in Cali. So anytime that Dave and myself went out, and anybody saw us, we were immediately identified as DEA or CIA operatives. So we had to do most of our work at night under the cover of darkness. And eventually we had to work unilaterally as a result of the systemic corruption that Dave described. So it was very difficult for us to blend in. It was very hard for us to do our job. And we had to take a lot of precautions.
Yeah, speaking of those precautions, because in the 90s it was the most dangerous country in the world, #1 in murders and kidnappings, again, because of those, the Cali and the Medellin cartel, and they had been at war for 6 years, nothing they wouldn't do to hold on to their power. How many times did you come close to not making it out of that country alive?
Well, there's a couple of situations we were in. Like Chris mentioned, we couldn't work at the police base due to the corruption. So we were working just by ourselves. We didn't have any other reinforcement. It was just Chris and I. The closest reinforcement was probably 200 miles away in Bogota. There's a couple of situations. One, we're in a cane field where, we actually had Uzis pulled on us by the Colombian police. We were debriefing our source, so we couldn't tell them who we were because we didn't want the word to get out or us taken to the police station. If they did, there's no doubt our source would be dead and perhaps his family would be dead.
Yeah.
There's other situations where we were pulling out a potential witness who was actually a Chilean, so he could be extradited to the States. The Cali Cartel knew this, so they were trying to kill him. So we actually pulled him out knowing there was one of the main Cali hitmen right on his tail. And odd thing enough, the following morning they found this hitman. He was actually deceased in his car with a bullet in his head. And to this day, we don't know who did that.
Wow. And you bring up a whole nother level I think a lot of us haven't thought about. It's not only trying to save your life, but feeling the guilt and responsibility of trying to save the lives of those who are helping you. Okay, this is a case where patience and hard work is certainly a virtue. Tell us about the moment when you finally accomplished that particular assignment.
Well, honestly, it was a lot of relief because Dave and I had been in Colombia for almost 3 years at that time. And, it wasn't a normal 9 to 5 job. We were working, 18, 20. Sometimes we would work around the clock doing some of the surveillances. So it was a lot of relief, a lot of joy, excitement, because not only for us, but for the Colombian National Police and the Colombian government, we worked hand in hand with them the entire time that we were there. We did find units that we can trust and we were able to be successful with. So in that joint operation, it was great to see, both countries come together to work towards a common goal.
Wow. All right.
Absolutely.
Who is this book for? What do you want the reader to get out of this, Dave?
Well, I think the reader would get out exactly what happens in overseas, especially during that time period, what the agents were faced with, but especially what the honest police officer and military was faced with, because even there was so much corruption, we still had the honest police officer that went to the mat every day and said, we want to improve our country. This is not who we are. And they had thousands of police officers who died for the cause. So what we want out of the book is to give praise to the Colombian security forces.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to end with a lot of people are giving praise to Nayib Bukele in El Salvador from taking that country to what was one of the most dangerous on the planet to one now that's one of close to the safest. He took extreme measures. And so I just want to get your opinion on what he's done there. And is that something that countries like America should look at?
Well, I think that any country can look at that as a model, and that if countries put their resources together and they work towards a common goal, they can accomplish that. Because before he took power, Salvador had a lot of problems there with the gangs, and as a result of what the government did, they were able to get that under control and make that country now, a shining spot there in Central America.
Yeah. I remember when who was it? Was it Manuel Noriega? Correct me if I'm wrong. When we got him, there's a comment that he made and said, "When you stop asking for it, we'll stop sending it." And it's interesting when you look at countries around the world, there are some of them that send the drugs here, but you better not do it there because the punishment is very, very stiff. And, countries like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Singapore, China, Vietnam, the Philippines, even Colombia today, it could mean a very long prison sentence or a death penalty. And in this country, we wrestle with going back and forth with that punishment phase. I don't know if there's a happy medium there, but it's a tough thing to try and arrest when you have a demand for it.
You're absolutely right. Yes.
All right. So if we had the answer, we'd all be good, right? But we don't have the exact answer. But gentlemen, thank you so much. It's a fascinating read, and I just the very little essence that I got from what you do, from doing that Citizens Academy here in Houston, it is a crazy job. So thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed the Academy.
Yeah, you can get your copy of After Escobar, Taking Down the Notorious Cali Godfathers and the Biggest Drug Cartel in History on Amazon and wherever books are sold.